Nyeba gunle namdol shing yende gunge gemba bo simjen gunge nyen jekbo tamje genla gun chanze omen jege gembo dan dusum sange gunge ngobo ni rasim jego ngosman zebe tsave lame shabla so waende 담비체 냠슬림베 꿀롱상보 내중기 셈바당 장주기 셈 되니 파진 도글라소가 참베거니 담비체 냠슬림베 슈스
The excellent intention to practice the profound and sublime Dharma consists of the mind of renunciation, as well as the mind of awakening, bodhicitta, as well as the mind which is inclined towards the 6 paramitas. So with this intention, with this motivation, please listen to the Dharma.
so ta tarpa dubjeki lamki kola shugore ta dela sache ngayo penani sumpa tulmeki lam sene khandichulang singre sene di shubikabre.
What brings about liberation? That which liberates is the path. And as we've been having class, we've talked about these 5 main topics, or the 5 main subjects that we're going to discuss. And currently we're talking about the path, and specifically the unmistaken path, the correct path, the authentic path, and exactly how we recognize what that is.
Ta delatini kasang tache tatal dengi shi tun dokur tata soni lamjo sishi tatal dunyi de tobe goju mebe chodan tepar sho se kin sawe ki shungdigi tan dorde na ani kangba tangbo degi shi nelu la matul pa kangba nyeba degi tende kin dubje ki lam nyamsu lemba la matul pa teni sumba kangba sumba degi teni dubjen debu la teni tende chini da juk sumba ina ani tulme jire sini shidang lamdang debu sumga la matu batila teni gochu mebe ki lamam che sini segure sini da sumbare.
In our previous classes and our previous discussion, we talked about this one verse from the Mahamudra Aspiration Prayer that really sums up what we mean by the path. It goes as follows: through the ground of the 2 truths, free from the extremes of eternalism and nihilism, and through the supreme path of the 2 accumulations, free from the extremes of exaggeration and denial, may we attain the fruition of the 2 benefits, free from the extremes of samsara and nirvana, and so meet with the unerring Dharma. So these 4 lines, they summarize what we mean by this unmistaken, genuine path. The first line refers to the unmistaken nature of the 2 truths. The second line, the unmistaken path, or how to go about practicing that path through the 2 accumulations. The third line refers to the result that comes about through the path, the 2 kayas. And the fourth line summarizes all this as may we meet with the unerring, the correct, authentic, unmistaken path.
Ta denani kasang anzu dokur tatal choni lamjo ki sene dekola dine ngazo sambo gomdang de zukola shugura ba.
And so up to now, recently we've been talking about the second line, the supreme path of the two accumulations, free from extremes of exaggeration and denial. This is what we are talking about when we're talking about meditation, how we meditate, how we do the analytical process of meditating.
다더니 한조 카사한테니 다디낭라 빵자데 카르레스나 도도탄 꾸뎀니 부데레스 딘수 빵웨코니 드니 둡자데 카르레스나 드는 초니 부든 두고 그레스니 송바레.
So what we are to abandon, what we are to set aside or get rid of, that is the extremes of exaggeration and denial. That's the object of our rejection. That's what we need to get rid of. But what do we need to accomplish? What do we need to practice? That is the two accumulations, which is talked about in the third line.
Third line mare di niba khorang nangla dogur tatal choni lamchoki se nyamdwa.
And so the line reads, may we
Not in third line di nipala.
Oh, sorry. The second line refers to the supreme path of the two accumulations, free from the extremes of exaggeration and denial.
Tadina nganzu dogur se de pangja de shecharwa. Ta ona dendegin dogur ge tadan dalna ta nganazu langja de karresna de choni budere sne songbare. Sunam ge chodan yeshe ge chos.
So we're abandoning these extremes of exaggeration and denial, and what we need to take up and practice are the two accumulations.
Ta dijedu ta lamngone de karresna choni se de chadebare.
So when we ask what do we mean by the actual path? What is that? That is these two accumulations.
Tela karisege ta lamdi kandis gogresna tache ge tadang dalbe ge choni ji gogres lamna ya digre. Yang cho shemajini samdang baina na tendegin tache ge tadang ni di dalwala ta tache ge tani budi pangjarwa dibarwa. Andegi nyembo dawdi khariten gogres sanatini choni budi sa gogres lamna ya digre.
And when we talk about the supreme path of the two accumulations, it's not incorrect to say that what needs to be rejected in this case as well is the extremes of eternalism and nihilism, as we saw in the first line. We can think about it in that way as well. We understand what that is. We need to reject or get rid of the ideas of eternalism, the idea of nihilism, that extreme. And how do we do that? We do that through the application of the antidote. And in this case, when we're talking about the extremes of nihilism and eternalism, these are kinds of obscurations or veils that can be gotten rid of. And how we do that is by applying the antidote of the two accumulations.
디지두당 아주 낭바 산제베게 람탐 제디 지당 남샤 제용도다 갸첨보 람가 사주 세다와단 장주 수린 세다와단 파진 주당 두드네 망보여라 봐. 얘네 주 도도 다마 뒤샤나더니 수남게 초단 이식이 초세 니나라 뉴트고여라.
Within the Buddhist tradition, there's a lot of talk about the path. A lot of discussion on what that entails. Example, we have the 5 paths. We have the 10 bhumis. We have the 37 qualities, the 37 stages, or the 37 aspects of enlightenment. We also have the 6 paramitas, or even the 10 paramitas. But if we condense all of those teachings into into a simple formula, it all condenses within the two accumulations.
Tati kararesana ngaranzu sanjeji kopang sayati namba nigi kunin tubares lapare kararesana tani chögi kodang sugi ku sani tibula kunyi yaware tani kunyi pode dubar chabala gyuyang tani niku gores lapare tani sugi ku dube kengyu di sunam ki soksa ko gore tani chögi ku dube di ishe ki soksa ko gore ngaranzula niga ko yoba songsan tani cho nyebode nyamdo sunju ko kone sak ru gore sene sumbare.
So, how do we understand this? Within the Buddhist tradition, or when we talk about in the Buddhist tradition the result, what does it mean? What do we mean by Buddhahood, enlightenment, awakening? It comes with two aspects. There's two aspects to complete Buddhahood. And that is the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya, or the Dharma body and the form body. And these two bodies are the result, and each one of those kayas has its own particular cause. For the Rupakaya, its cause is the accumulation of merit, and the cause of the Dharmakaya is the accumulation of wisdom. And so within the Buddhist tradition, we need to have both of these, and we attain both of these by practicing the unity of the two accumulations.
Tadi ngazu cho nyebode ane ngebardo sungju kugoye saydi mangpo sunghare katang tenjo kinangla teni sogyungi pedi karishasana penanta ja namkalam purwar chepala teni shubha niga kugraba denani karunchi matsangba ina teni susugun dosegi sala lemme tuba nashin cheni tamche kembe kopang tobar chepala ya sunamda ishegi cho niga di teni ngebardo sungju kukoni sakugoye sungbare.
So we talk about the unity, the union, the inseparability of the two accumulations of merit and wisdom. And this unity, this inherent connection that needs to happen between these two accumulations is spoken about extensively within the Kangyur and the Tengyur, the Buddha's words, and the treatises that comment on the Buddha's words. And there's a popular way of talking about the unity of these two accumulations. For example, a bird, in order to fly in the sky, needs to have two wings, right? Without one, if there's one wing that's not present, the bird can't reach its destination. So in the same way, as practitioners on the Buddhist path, we need to have both the accumulation of merit as well as wisdom, just like two wings on a bird, in order to attain or reach the destination of Buddhahood.
So that's the, I think, classical metaphor for two accumulations. But I think for us, it will be also a nice way to understand it, like a picture, video, or so that if you have a picture, all the pixels, would be like sunam gitsok, accumulation of merit. And when you put all the pixels together in the right order, and something happens as a whole picture, and that will be yeshe gitsok.
The accumulation of wisdom.
Accumulation of wisdom. So sometimes, seemingly, when you focus too much on the pixels, you might not see the picture. And sometimes when you just look at the picture, generalize it, you don't see the pixels. But in reality, they are not, cancelling each other. They work together. In fact, you cannot separate picture from the pixels. I think that's a good example way to understand it. Maybe another, you can say the canvas would be the foundation basis. Blankness would be or canvas would be the sunam gisok, and whatever that you pen on it, which becomes the actual picture, would be the accumulation of wisdom. Wow. This is good metaphor. Karesana kapkawla ngazuki sunam gisok sak tasaki yorte inaya lamsang ko debu yungu yo marwa lekim de seti tin du ngazu mangbu che tokba sa ga warta pena ngazu lamsang ji kewa sak batang lamsang gom kya batang ji chadu gu marwa didi kande resna kerangi penna pardi server chebala pixel re ki lega che ko korba ine kerang de pixel chila ta deba na parthong ge marwa ine yang kerang ki thengma re la pixel de sha yonde kapsu parti pa share ki niba de chero do yor tanda parta thong ge marwa ine ya ngazu ki semla gesem keji ji ke badi pixel ji cha de ge ti luwa me pare 와 얘네 람사 빠르다 통고 말와 고 뉴스 고고 열어봐 베네케랑 빠르지스 고 바제 디 픽셀 붐다지요나 니마레레레 픽셀 nga 샤다 바는다 로카시 가이 통고 말와 아니 제마 아니 줌 아웃 지리 시니 되네 빠르다 통용 걸어봐 디 사무다이 계신 말에 갑갈랑 알아서 수남기 초사 바이네야 고 데부디 람사 미 통지 메바다 되네지 메온데 가서 이 마체 바타보다 양갑갑라지 준리 라도에다고 연구도와 준리 라교요 말에 계란기 딕박 깨심 깨지지게 바이네야 랭가바지 사사래 딕박 깨심 게베심 깨지지게 바이네야 레상바지 사사와래 딜라게요 말에 텐델루아메 바인데
So I think this is a nice analogy, an example, because when we practice the Dharma, when we're accumulating merit, it can feel that we're not getting anywhere quickly, right? We might be practicing all the time, but because the result is based on the accumulation of its causes, it takes time for it actually to manifest, become clear, obvious to us. And that can lead us to have some doubts. We want to see immediate results, right? And without that, we can have doubts or worry whether or not we're actually doing anything at all. And so I think this is a good example because, for example, if we're going to make, say, a digital image, right? That digital image is full of pixels. All it is really just pixels, right? And if we only focus on one pixel at a time, we're going to miss the full picture of what's happening, right? We're only narrowing in on one pixel, and we just see that one thing, and we think, well, what is this? This isn't much to be proud about, right? But the thing is, we're not seeing the whole picture. And say, for example, you want to make a picture, and it's got 1 million pixels in it, and every day you add to it 5 pixels. It's still going to take a very long time for the whole image to really come into view. But that's not saying you're not doing anything. You are doing something. You're doing something which is necessary. You're actually doing the process of making that photo more obvious. So it's not that you're not doing anything. It's just it's not obvious in the beginning. So the same thing with practice. Every day we're practicing a little bit, right? And our practice is not deceptive. What do I mean by that? It's undeceiving. What you're doing is bearing the fruits. It's just, it takes a while. Every day we practice a little virtue. We abandon a little non-virtue. That's adding. Every single day we're adding to, say, the final big picture, which is the final result. And before that happens, we can kind of lose heart. We can feel a little discouraged if we don't see things immediately. But again, what we're doing is essentially the causes and conditions that lead to the interdependent origination of its result is unfailing. It will never let you down. In that sense, that you are doing something every day, and eventually it will become clear.
Since the enlightenment is a very high resolution, so it takes time. It's important to be patient. And another important is that don't zoom in too much. You will miss the picture. Or sometimes because of it's like if you zoom in too much, you're stuck with the accumulation of merit. And if you zoom out too much, picture will disappear. And that will be falling into the extremes of wisdom. So it's very important to keep the picture at the right size. Not too much zoom in, not too much zoom out. Tini korim cheba ina ta sonam gi chode nga zu ngola sa tini kale tini rangshin gi yeshe gi chode ya ki yung go re chidang cheba ina.
So what about the process? How do we go about engaging with these two accumulations? Normally the process is first we accumulate merit, and then slowly and eventually and naturally the arising of the accumulations of wisdom will come about.
Penang zu par yakbu gogudu na ta par yakbu gogudu se lab debe ge yung marwa nga zu dadik de khawan che ko to sene pixel ni dadik che ko to wa.
For example, if we want to make a good digital image, a high resolution image, we can say, of course we want to have that, right? But we need to have the pixels that which make up that high resolution image first.
So
where it all starts is at the pixel level. And likewise, where we start is with the accumulation of merit.
So another very important thing is that when you put the pixels together to make the digital picture, you cannot just throw everything randomly. It doesn't work that way. So second important is the order. You have to put all the colors in the right order. Otherwise it's not going to work very well. Picture will still be very blurry even though you work for a long time. If you don't know the order. This is exactly what we call lamrim, stages of paths. There's an order to the process. If you follow that, your picture will be much more clear, vivid, and swift. So that's why if you are serious about the practice, it's important to listen to Lama, because Lama, they are the expert on the order. Tangazu lam nyam se lembe kapsula goba gyumse mangbo la teni da kashe ge oda sonam gi chode pe ge chumbare sene yang ngazu roba yeshe ge chode samno tang ma soba tende yungre da dela rikshung dang kyapchong dang soso le dang kalpa tang mangbo yere da yang kap kaplan o ta ngone dane ngazu goe de da yeshe re was da dirang ge chumbare da sonam ge chose den da shira mare was ni dende chikta yongsi barwa dinzu dini ngazu michi ki o ta parti pe message chumbare se labata ya chi ki mare pixel de pe ke chumbare se labata di marwa dinde marwa koni yewa karan chethu marwa nyamdo gore ma to di indi dini duksne chi nigala dini koran ke chumba yemati nishike di ani ngazu 손이 숭주 세결된다 망고 숭그래 맨나다 가서 탈라롱도와 손이 숭죽대 고알렘니 냠len 야보 마제나 되니 도도당 꿀대니가 탈라롱도고 그래 가는지구나.
So there's just so many reasons and reasons why the correct progress, the correct steps on the path are so important, necessary. But however, due to kind of maybe our culture or just our habits or tendencies or psychology, what have you, what the things that make us different, we might have more favor one over the other. For example, you might have someone that thinks that accumulating merit's really the most important thing, and they don't really give a lot of credence to wisdom. And so, I mean, that's not exactly the way that we need to go about it. Others might think, first we need to start with wisdom. That's obviously the most important thing. And again, they don't really respect the accumulation of wisdom, of merit. And so some might think, merit's the most important thing. Some might think wisdom's the most important thing. But you can't really, as we said, we can't separate these things. The same way that you might have someone that says, the picture is the most important thing. And then the other person says, well, actually the pixels are the most important thing. Right? You can't separate these two. They come together. And so that's why, obviously, both are incredibly important. And that's why we talk about the unity or the union of the two accumulations. Without it, we fall into the extremes of exaggeration, denial, eternalism, nihilism, etc. So again, the path is this unity of the two accumulations.
Tadidi peshana kanderesana anzu Sherap kin thala lungne rwa ta choksa se dinzo da namdo ke kejare ndi ko ji gyaga luksure ngazo ina culture rese rwa di indi da dinzo khora lukso res ta ngone de ta nganzo Sherap de res lab de bai na ta midi ge khane da parse de tinde yore se mangboj de she jab ani nothing happens wa khani changba lab de da ko pixel la chani khora dur ma che bai na par khane lab ma to ji ngone ka chek marwa theory do changba chek ta deni yang ta sunam ji chok khorang ga gang la la ani ishe gi chok samlo tang ma to dang az thosam dawa khaya ma che ta so gi semla dul du 2 minute ta che khaya ma tang ta choba da bu ji pu tin malam da bu ji kam ta de ga so dik do gre samne le ji de sha pa na ta de yang gar re se na da pixel ro bum ji go gi na guju ji ru tang ta de gi de ni nga pix par yak bu ji so gi slap na yong mar wa pixel sang gi yo mar wa de ga na sing gi de ni nga zu pixel ki nge dang ji la ba na shin ji ko pixel di 강중 만중 또 샤바나 빠데 차토고 말와 고 고림디 오더디 야부 디고도와 디 마디 바나 유능부 칼레 자바나 시라시라 lep토고 말와 디니 소남지 속라 그 탈라 송베기 강해드니 슝거래.
So we can talk about this example again. First, there's some people that maybe fall into the extreme of the wisdom side of things, thinking, the accumulation of this so-called merit is just really, it's like just concepts, just conceptual thinking. It's not the real thing. Or maybe some people think it's just some kind of artifact of Indian culture that we do these kinds of practices of accumulating merit. But it's like someone only talking about the picture without doing anything about putting the pixels on the page, so to say, right? There's no pixels there to talk. They haven't really gathered all the pixels that are needed in order for that picture to actually be visible. It's just talking. It's just purely empty words. So there's that kind of person, and then there's the person that kind of falls into the side of only accumulating merit, and that means that they don't really go through the process of really trying to figure things out through study and contemplation, or they don't really investigate where they are mentally, the nature, say, of their mind, or where they're at on a more kind of practical level. All they do is maybe make offerings or other kinds of means of going about collecting what they believe to be this accumulation of merit. And so that's what kind of we're talking about. It's like maybe they collect, say, the person making the picture. They've got a lot of pixels, but they kind of get to a certain level of it, and they're not really thinking about the big picture. And on top of that, they might just be kind of throwing pixels, say, on the page, and it's not going to bring about a clear picture because there's no foresight of the picture, right? So we can think about it in this way as well.
So that to sum up, if you fall into the extremes of wisdom and deny the accumulation of merit, then you can talk a lot, but then nothing happens. And then if you fall into the extremes of accumulation, and if you don't have a wisdom, you can walk, but there's no guarantee that you will reach where you're going. tatidang anzu nangbasange beke di chokse isla yorba chokse di 가르치기 그랬으나더니 타바당 탐제케 메 고방 두발 제발라 규당 낀 데네데네 중국어 어레스 덴조 창송바이나 안 대부상지 톱그래 마상바이나다 대부상지 톱토고 말해스 네 값은 촉세디 타바당 탐제케 메게 규긴도들 고고어레 다디 아니 소남다의 시기소 니가 차는데 여러봐 디 마초나 아니 대부분 소와 마창 창소래 딘데 촉세 코랑 식랑네 지
So when we talk about accumulation, the accumulation of merit, accumulation of wisdom, what do we mean by accumulation? When in the Buddhist context, the result is liberation, full omniscience, and the accumulation that we're talking about here is essentially the causes and conditions that lead to that result. If the causes and conditions are present or are amassed or accumulated, then the result will arise. If they're not, the result will not arise. So we talk about these two accumulations as the very causes, the very conditions which are necessary when complete bring about liberation. But until that happens, liberation can't arise.
도드나 타와당 탐제 캠비긴 유겐들라 촉슬라 바래.
So accumulation in this context are the causes and conditions of Buddhahood.
다 델라드니 만수 남주 베바기 칙 수남슬라 거와. 다 드니 디 가르치를 쓰고 그래서는 도드나 수남스나다 상보 약보 강다를 다 페이지 아주 인지kel라에는 positive energy 세시도와 딜라 디더버래 데부당 균이가디 약보당 대화 얘기 토베기 누바셔와 뚜니기 누바셔와 딜라드니 소남슬라바래.
When we talk about merit, I normally translate this word sonam as merit. When we think about it in the Tibetan kind of vernacular, it means something that's good, that's excellent. It's very positive. And as Khenpo said, we can almost think of it as what we mean in English as positive, good energy. And so what that positive, good energy, that merit does is it brings about the result which we want. And in this case, it means things that we like happiness, well-being. So it's that is the cause which brings about that kind of positive result.
타도르나 상복인 자와당 상복이 레든 줄라더니 안간소에 남주 수남슬랍거래. 도르나다 삼바 상보단 자와 상보 된데기 뉴바텔라 수남슬랍거래.
So this merit, it's a kind of power or capacity, and that capacity in this case is positive actions and positive thinking, positive intention, we could say. These positive actions, these positive intentions is what we mean by this power or this capacity, which we call merit.
다 예시 세디 제당 네룩 뭐여기 니수 가래 임바티 만으로 마투와 토킹케이드니 셰랍들라 예시 세거래.
And when we talk about the accumulation of wisdom, what do we mean by the word wisdom? Actually, and I could probably translate it as what we normally translate as primordial wisdom or gnosis. Essentially, it is the kind of intelligence or the kind of wisdom which recognizes the way things truly are, the nature of reality.
다 대지당 아주 예시에서데 대식 고알린단 니요래. 고알린단 찍을라더니 예세나 니루라 세거래. 코란 드만니 gyurme 아주 인지kel라에는 as it is 세거와. 시에서나다 된데 똑베게더니 셰랍들라스. 다양 고알린단 찍을라더니 예 통마 메바니 아니 ngaran수긴 gyula 랑체수 룬줍 줄도 여대베게 셰바이 마송자 예셰에스니.
There are two ways that we can come to terms with this word wisdom or primordial wisdom. Some translate it as cognizance as well. But in Tibetan it's called ye she. So the ye part is we can say it's the nature of the way things are, the unchanging nature as it is. And the she part is that which realizes that which recognizes it, the mind, the unmistaken, unerring mind, which recognizes that which has always been as it is. And when we put those together, we can say it's the kind of wisdom that from primordial time has been within the minds of sentient beings and in a spontaneous, immediate, natural way.
Tani ta anzu do denzu ge nala pe mangpo share ani yeshe se de pena anzu saja jiglan dogu go na saja den gawalan dogu go tu sini yakbo ha go we ki migji go do ba mile mig mena dosa gawa yime ha go mare ta mig ye ba cham je gi tani saja de le ge resa le ge marwa kangba tu ni dogu go ba komba chamni tin de samate ni yeshe se de nganzu mig na shin chires dosa gawa yimba sepo ha go kendela tani sunam soksana kangba dawo ta ngwe su phan dogu go ba dokhin de kangba dawo de nganzu la da mig go go ra kangba go go ba ani denyi na ne garu ji mena yana mig me pam yana kangba me pataw chagre sungbare.
In the sutras, they give a lot of examples of what we mean by this kind of wisdom. For example, if we need to go somewhere, we have to have eyes, a way of seeing where we're going. The destination at hand, we need to have the faculty to be able to know where we're going. And if we have eyes, for example, it's easy to get there. Without them, it's difficult to know where you're going and how to get there. So, but if you only have eyes and say no feet or no way of transporting yourself, then you're never going to get there. So the example of a way of transporting yourself through your feet, for example, is what we mean by the accumulation of merit. Without one or the other, it's very difficult to get to your desired destination. But with both intact, it's clear how to get there, and you can actually get there.
당아주 냠린지리 지당 초니 세대다 림바 망보 삼박단 요래 당아주 지당까지 셔바이나 다 륜하게 개와셔라 봐 차사에 꼬라에 갸비에 망보 된줄라더니 남기 수남기 초슬랍쇼고 다더니 이기 개와셔라 봐 이기 개와다 또 삼도 땅땅다고 당 곰갸베 된줄라더니 이셰기 초선레야 랍쇼고래.
When we talk about the path, there are many stages or steps that one takes. And there are many ways of thinking about how to talk about those stages or steps. For example, we can talk about the actions that the actions of body and speech. In this case, the merit that we can accumulate through body and speech. For example, prostrations, doing circumambulations. These kinds of activities that or activities of speech or activities of body are normally what we mean by this accumulation of merit. And then from the perspective of the mind, the virtue that one applies to the mind, we normally talk about meditation in that context. And that meditation, we could say, is what brings about the accumulation of wisdom.
다드니 안수 곰 갸바이나양 양 곰라 나 니여봐 안수이나다 똑제당 또메스나 디그레 treje당 treme스나 dire 간다 곰 배는 잠바오 곰에 닝제 곰에 다신 냠바오 곰에 망보 여러와 체메시 곰에 그래서 망제다 그 남도 람 배제다는 가서 냠는 제가 여러와 야 덴줄라 소남지 조세 다 냠샤다 워시다 드니 남도 배제 마다니 셈 코랑게 드니 ngo다라 신가래 임바디 균종에 곰되네 여러와 덴줄라야 이 시기 조스 랍초고 디인도다 그 림바 as layers da way na mang bo yong chou wa.
Another way we can talk about these layers, say, of practice, or accumulating the accumulation of merit and wisdom, we can talk about it just solely through the context of meditation. There's two kinds of meditation that we can divide meditation into, the one which is conceptual meditation and non-conceptual meditation. And so, for example, the kind of meditation that relies on concepts or things like meditating on compassion or love, the four immeasurables, exchanging oneself for other, all these kinds of mental activities that one goes through in meditation rely on concepts. And it's through those that kind of meditation that we can certainly accumulate the accumulation of merit. But when we talk about, for example, what we mean by equipoise, we normally say, or resting meditation, the kind of non-conceptual meditation, which might involve sustaining, for example, the nature of mind. These kinds of meditations do not rely on concepts, but are without concepts. And normally we talk about, in that context, that's what we mean by the accumulation of wisdom. So these are another kind of layer that we can talk about.
sonamdan ishigi chose de ko kawai nan jarchu gore inji minjik dirang resene zugzue de ka mare.
So when we talk about the accumulation of merit and wisdom, it's not just one specific way or one specific way that we need to understand it. We can really apply it to a plethora of different contexts or layers.
배낭 아주 군주기 자주심 냠는 제 된주다 손남기 소슬랍 주고래. 연남기 자주심 냠는 제 슬람나다 이식이 소슬랍 주고도 와.
For example, the practice of relative bodhicitta, that can be situated within the accumulation of merit, and the practice of ultimate bodhicitta can be situated within the context of wisdom.
다 나라주 남기 간디샤게 했으나다 람디 파진 두고와 자상 뒤나 파진 두나나 두고라. 되니 파진 기 두나는다 지당 샤당 디스 낭세 여와요레. 샤당 치디 짐바 출짐 소바 준주 3대 자상 되더니 소남지 초게 차실라샤. 그러와 되니 셰랍 디다 아주 니룩 topic logic chatige yaba는데 예식이 좋으세요래. 파진 두게 낭네. 예와체 바이나.
Another common way of talking about these layers of the two accumulations is by dividing the path up into the 6 paramitas. And the way that we actually go about categorizing the 6 paramitas according to merit and wisdom are many. There's different kinds of ways we can do it. But one way is the first 5, generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, and we could say in this case meditative concentration. These 5 paramitas are can be situated within the context of merit. And the last, wisdom or prajna, that can be situated within the context of wisdom or the accumulation of wisdom. And specifically, this kind of mind is that the mind that recognizes the way things are, the nature of reality.
다 되니 양 간주 또 저지 십자제니 삼록당 바이나 양 팔진 두기 나네 팔진 진바당 출림 예버디다 소남지 쪽 장마라샤. 그러봐. 되니 셰랍디 예식이 초라샤. 다 되니 서바 준주 삼된디 니가긴 독수 주르바다 니가기 파운데이션 다와인 kunzu 니가라 고고 예스 텐데얀디양 양 다다다 차겨 낭세게 예바체 바이나.
And again, so another way that we can divide the 6 paramitas up between the two, merit and wisdom, is that the first two, generosity and discipline, those are reserved for accumulation of merit. And the last, prajna, wisdom, is reserved or situated within the accumulation of wisdom. And then the three in between, patience, diligence, and meditative concentration, these are actually needed in both the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. So they go equally between the two. So this is another way we can talk about it on maybe a more detailed level.
답변한가서 라바숨라 선노땅 바이나 출림게 라바디 수남게 쪽으로와 시랍게 라바디다 예셰게 쪽으로 다더니 띵예정게 라바디다 니가게 좀시라고 자로도와.
We can also talk about the 3 trainings. The first training is the training in discipline, and this is the accumulation of merit in this context. And then the training in wisdom, prajna, is the accumulation of wisdom in this context. And then the training in absorption, the training in meditative equipoise, samadhi. This is again just like the last example, is shared between both the accumulation of merit from the context of discipline and the accumulation of wisdom through the context of prajna.
대양 알아서 냠nen라 선노땅 바이나 아주 최가래 지게요네야 닝부 니요래다. 아주 남긴 좀 더뒤샤도 가래 동니 닝제 닝부 전세로와 탑 닝제 첨보당 시랍 동반이 세디로와 띵데다 걔랑 탑 닝제 첨벽이 꾸는 랑네 되니 닝제기 낭기 가래 내가 지도나 다 자상한데 되니 수남기 속이 캡되버서라고 지금 거. 다야 근데 델라 셰랍 동반이기 지심밤 셰랍 동반이당 델베기 냠랭 가른 난게 여바이네 다 동반이 스나리 그래 다메 스나리 그래 와 랑신 마두바 안데 차상 아니 셰랍기 차르도기 람 예셰기 초서야 돼 차되게 그래 다 델라드니 도디나 탑라 셰랍긴 독제 아니 말에 셰랍라 탑긴 독제 탑라 셰랍기 지심메고네 냠스 렘바틀라 가르세 그래서는더니 손이 손조기 냠는지 세거래
탑기 셰랍기 로가지
탑디기 셰랍 공별도 제비기 독지기도 와 되니 셰랍기 탑라 주 지심고도 와 벤스랑 아주 짐바지 당겨요나 짐바 땅바디기 다음에도 그 셰랍란 독지거래 난 대단 냠돌라 짐바 땅와 코랑디 아니 짐베디 칸데스 파르친차 그래서는 동니 셰랍게 지심바 선다 딘데스 판순 독수 도고 땅 아주 단지 픽셀당 파트너십과 픽셀 되게 빨라 독제 아니 픽셀 되게 타두 데부디다 픽 파트러와 데니가 펜순 도고도 봐 딘데스 고고요 성발.
And we can talk about in whatever we're practicing, whatever we're doing, whatever practices we're doing on the path, there are 2 essences that we can talk about. 2 main kinds of essences that pervade all the different kinds of practices that we can engage in, and that is the method and wisdom. And we say it is the emptiness which has as its core the nature of compassion. So in this we have there's 2 sides. One is method, and that method is great compassion, and the other side is wisdom, the recognition of emptiness, right? We have the wisdom, or the method itself, which is compassion, and the wisdom itself, which is the recognition of emptiness. And so whatever we do, for example, the method itself, what it does is actually helps and aids in the further development and stability or recognition of emptiness. So it actually aids in the development of wisdom. And what the wisdom does is it embraces the method to make that method a way of going about actually accumulating wisdom. And so first we have the method, and that's generally when we talk about the method, we're doing the process of accumulating merit. And through that accumulation of merit, one develops further the recognition of emptiness, which is this wisdom. And so that's the accumulation of merit. But on the other side, if we focus on the aspect of wisdom, that when that wisdom is synergized or embraced in the process of doing merit, collecting merit, what actually happens is the merit becomes or the accumulation that one is undergoing transforms into the accumulation of wisdom. And so, for example, if we're practicing generosity, that generosity is helping develop further the power of the recognition of emptiness through the causes and conditions that it's bringing about through that positive accumulation of merit. And then when the mind or the wisdom which recognizes emptiness is synergized or embraced with that accumulation of merit via, say, practicing generosity, that generosity becomes a vehicle for then accumulating the accumulation of wisdom.
So, accumulating merit doesn't mean making Buddhas and Bodhisattvas happy and getting reward. It means through understanding how dependent origination works, and by the wisdom, and believing in that, having conviction in the law of nature, and creating your own Buddha within yourself. Or maybe rediscovering your own nature, which is already there, and that is what it means, practicing the union up to accumulation together. Maybe Buddha might help us, but the Tordina Sangye di mi shemba chigla tero jesin te ni len dine kaya mare rangni kin je ni dine ngondo gyurko go wa Sangye di ji Sangye goban di tero jesin ni Sangye shagya to bala chobapu cha sa ani kong zu te wa dine kaya mare wa kong gi lam tengre ani soso rang so ko yare.
So Dharma practice isn't asking the Buddha to give us enlightenment, right? We're not saying, I'm going to do all this practice and make all these offerings to you and get all this merit so that you can then give me this Buddhahood. It doesn't work like that. One actually develops it through one's self in order to then attain liberation.
Natini Lordina Lamdi Pangja de Carresana, Dodo Tang Kurdeb Nyebuderes. Tene Langja Lam Ngone de Carresana, Sunamdan Eshikito Nyebuderes. Ta detini Deni Sunamdan Eshito Nyebude Apojini, Sunjudu Nyamsilento Baina, Lamgi Kosa, 아니 딱발 따바단 제발 따밤 조도단 꾸된 이나란 돌베게 되니 고주메베 람세디 차도 그래 스네 송바래.
So the path. Sorry, the path is that which allows us to abandon, to set aside the extremes of exaggeration, denying. These two extremes. These are what need to be gotten rid of through practicing the path. And the path itself, what is it? It's the taking up, the accepting, and the practicing of the two accumulations. So it's through these two accumulations, we talk about the unity, the inseparability of these two accumulations, that then leads to the result, which is completely free of the extremes of permanence and nihilism. And when that happens, when we're free from those kinds of extremes, then we're actually practicing the genuine, the unerring path.
라서 다더니 간조 디젤라 제부디 송고도 봐 시시 타타 드니 데토페 스디 가르템 바르스나더니 제불라 출바메 바디 데니식 인고거래 송바래.
Then the next step is attaining the fruit, attaining the result. And in this context, the third line, which states, "May we attain the fruition of the two benefits, free from the extremes of samsara and nirvana." So the result is free from these limits of samsara and nirvana.
다디 양드니 지바레 빵자니 요레 타디 노사디 디가르에스나 시바 감송 코르베케 타당 시와냥엘레 데베 타하스는 송바레.
So in this context as well, when we're talking about the result, it also has these two kinds of extremes which need to be abandoned or to be avoided. The extreme of abiding within the three realms of samsara, which we call in this case existence, and the extreme of nirvana, which in this is what we mean by peace. So being free from those two extremes.
타디나네 시바 감송 거와스나 레라버바 마란소다 다다 동안냥다 뇽심베 네갑데 둘라세거레 딜레 타르고 거레 디나라 데샤다 기부두 덴바에나 데탈롱바라와.
So when we talk about the three realms of samsara, we know what we're talking about in this context, right? It's the place and the cause of so much suffering that we experience, and that's the place we want to get out of that. We want to be liberated from that. But if we think that samsara is nice and a good place to stay, then we're going to fall into the extreme of abiding in samsara.
Yeah. If you like samsara, and then I think there's not much to say. We just have to say good luck. Then that dikapsula tizo jing azo norsa de kare yosna shiva di namju azo sanji gopala nirvana segrwa. Ta di yang ta se sha do khande ina so di dokwa lep segre. Erba di is a technical redwa. Technical term do bchre. Di dikapsula shiva se di sanji gopantela sege yo mare. 낭백이 가리 이제 지겨워서나 걔랑 셰랍 디메나 시베탈라 롱도 그래스라로 가레스 타코 세바 감는 코발렌 타당데 하고고요 말와 다 간주 검다고 또저 갭 냠린다고 제 드네 제바이나 걔랑주 지 시바 감정 코발레 타리 투베지 여레스라 바래 이나양 닝제당 드네 메바이나 탑기 참메바 탑기 차당 달비 고방지 톱주 여레스 라바르와 둥알레 다와 임바 간실라 산지 고방 레 마토바체 네 바르 디발라다지 닝제당 덴제당 윤den게 차가야 메바다가 저징아주지 로망보직다 윤릉보직 그 셈기 띵에진 덴제강을 데데에 줘레스 라와 딜레시베 다 세겨를 탄다 yang di nga zo namgyo gi tempa shiki na nirvana se di mare di nore di norgyo yo mare.
So what we might have some doubt about when we talk about the extremes of existence or the extremes of samsara and nirvana is what we mean exactly by nirvana in this case. We certainly might be thinking, oh, well, that's the goal, right? Nirvana is what we're supposed to be attaining. So we can have some doubt, a question about what we mean exactly by this term. And exactly, this term is a more of a technical term that we need to parse out and figure out, well, what do we mean by peace in this context. So this kind of peace is not the full attainment of Buddhahood, liberation. So I can explain further what we mean by that is within the Buddhist context. If we don't have the merit, or if we don't have the wisdom, if we don't have wisdom, then we have no way of getting out of samsara. The wisdom aspect is what we need in order to get liberated from samsara. And it means we know the methods of going about getting liberated from samsara. And once that happens, say we start practicing those methods, and we have the wisdom to be able to practice those kinds of methods. So we know a little bit about what's going on, and certainly we can be liberated. We can get out of the suffering of samsara. But we don't have the very important part, which is the compassion part. The compassion is the exact same thing when we mean the kind of method, the compassionate method that one needs, and it's through that compassionate methods that all the qualities of full, complete enlightenment come about. So what's happened? We don't have the suffering of samsara because we've been liberated, so to say, from samsara. But because we don't have the compassion, the aspect of the means of compassion, we don't have the qualities of Buddhahood yet. So we're somewhere stuck in between these two. We're stuck in between samsara and actual authentic Buddhahood, in this place of peace, which we could say describe as it's a kind of meditation. It's a kind of samadhi that one can get into, but we stay there for a very long time without actually having attained true authentic Buddhahood. And so again, when we talk about, in this case, this nirvana, it's not the kind of nirvana that we talk about within the context of the four truths. This is more of a technical idea of peace.
Tadeni tadende dang dalibe ke teni debu matru bade kar resna teni denni slapshadwa denni sidi kar segresna rangden dang shinden labare telan denni the gosa de kawal koko resna chugu dang suguni la koko gore ani rangden punsun soba chugu ani shinden punsun soba sugu slagore kar resna ta chugu de zo sosorwa 동알을 달은 거와 아니 소구도 저 심진 신라더니 펜도 제게 제대로 연구해 봐 인도더니 된대기 시신이당 달베기 꾸니 숭주디 아니 다도긴 대부 라와 만노 마토바딘 숭바레.
And it says the when we talk about the fruition, the result, it is of the two benefits, right? We attain the fruition of the two benefits. And the two benefits in this context are the benefit of self and the benefit of other. And through when one perfects, so to say, one perfects the benefit of oneself, that is what we call Dharmakaya. And when one perfects the benefit of others, that is what we call the Rupakaya. And so what we mean is when one benefits perfectly oneself, that means oneself is free from suffering in any means of the word. We ourselves do not have any suffering. And then when it means perfecting the benefit of others, it means being able to benefit them. Yeah, do what we need to in order to benefit all sentient beings, and it's these two that need to be intact in order for to have complete, perfect Buddhahood, the actual result of enlightenment.
Teni ta dordina garisung resana tsikje dege nangla ta lam se di shi deni sungjuk toni teni lamchoni sungjuk de dugu gre dendege lamchoni sungjuk de dubaina ani debu kunyi sungjuk se di top yong go re dela teni shidang lamdan debu sumga kin golju mebe ke lam se go re sungbare.
And so the meaning that we can glean from these 4 lines is that in order to enter into the unerring path, what does that mean? It means first having the basis, which is the ground, which is the unity of the two truths. And it's from that basis that through that understanding or through that recognition of the two truths that one then enters into the unerring path, which is the two accumulations. And by accomplishing and by practicing the accumulations, that perfection of the two accumulations brings about the result, which is the two kayas. And so when this is the process that one goes through, the path from that perspective is completely unerring and genuine.
Tene golchuk mebe chetan tepara shoksunan ta tene jungsunan ta ngone dane ke tene golchuk mebe ke che lamyang da ba che chaware sungbare.
And so when it says so meet with the unerring dharma, that means may we meet with the unerring path, may we enter into and practice the unerring, unmistaken path.
Ta de yani ngazo lamyang ngo de ta shusin ba chirwa.
And so that's so this is what we mean by the very essence, what we mean by the path.
So ta drink tor dina tini nganzu chidang lam se de tini cho ni bodela ngojin je go gore tini dende ge choni dia ya matar be ngol go gore sungju do go gore tini nganzu go juk sa de gawan juk go gore sana sonam ge choni go juk go gore sungbare.
So in brief, the path in this context is the two accumulations. And those two accumulations need to be undivided or a unity. And when we talk about, say, progress, where do we need to start with? What is it that we start with? First, we start with the accumulation of merit.
당아zo 차차에 당 쳬바불에 당 꼬라갸베 당 다든서 가르치도 되든서 제고거래.
So whatever it is, for example, doing prostrations or making offerings or doing circumambulations around a stupa, we have to do these things.
So, Janju semju rinpoche mage panam ke gyureje ke ba nyambara me ba yang gone gondo pelbare sho